Well, hello there. Melina from YoGeek. Welcome back for video number 2, or just welcome in general to my channel, where I am here to just provide tips and tricks that you can use to help support your current workout program. There's a ton of free stuff out there right now. There's a ton of great trainers right now. So again, like I said in my last video, I just want to provide some tips and tricks to make sure that if you're feeling some wonkiness in some areas, that maybe it might be a functional or a form issue, and ways to identify it and maybe fix it, do little tweaks, modifications, things like that. So last week we talked about the valgus issue, that kind of knee cave-in that happens when somebody's doing a squat, or if you're doing yoga, or even when you're doing lunges, how you might be coming into a position and it just kind of collapses in. So knees go bloop for squats, and lunges and whatnot, bloop comes over. Apparently I come with sound effects as well. Bloop is the official terminology. In any case, we talked about a couple things to do to strengthen glutes and VMOs, and then also the issue of the hip flexor and TFL tightness. So what I have in my little hand here is a ball that is used for releasing fascia. So fascia is this, basically, if you think about a saran wrap going from all the way from your toes around everything in your body, top of your head. And what's interesting about fascia is that if it's not kind of taken care of and released, it can kind of tighten, and then it inhibits movement and mobility of the muscles. So it's a little bit different than just stretching. If you think like a deep tissue massage, how therapists can get in there and it's just like, oh, you feel all loosey-goosey afterwards. So that's also, not only is it addressing maybe tight muscles, but there's also a fascial release that happens. So for our topic that we talked about last week with the tight hip flexors and TFL, a great thing to do before doing your glute activation to help strengthen the glutes is to essentially inhibit like this mind-body connection here with the TFL. And what that does is it helps these guys to relax, so that when you're doing either your band walks or your abduction, where you're sitting in the chair and opening and closing the legs with the band, these are kind of settled down, they're kind of shushed, so that you can focus on activating these. So this is about the size of a softball. This one is kind of particular, and I like it because it's a little more pliable than a softball, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, fascia release is, I like to use the word invigorating. You may find yourself either cursing or speaking in tongues, things of that nature, but afterwards, it's going to feel fantastic. So I'm going to show you a couple ways to, first of all, release TFL and kind of let those hip flexors chill out, and then show you some things you can do after, like say you're doing a leg day or you've done your glute activation, a nice little fascial release for after that. So another little tidbit is doing things like foam rolling or using the balls, or even like this is a lacrosse ball. Usually they're white or yellow. I got these because they were pretty. But it's just a lacrosse ball. They're all great tools to help play around with that fascia. So kind of a big misunderstanding about when you're foam rolling or using tools like a lacrosse ball or softball or something of that nature is that you just put all your weight on it and then roll like crazy over it. No. That's one, awfully painful. And two, there are techniques to do this. So for example, there can be a technique where you put a little bit of pressure and then you're moving, kind of smearing across the ball or roller. And I'll show you some examples of this. Another technique is to actually have the pressure on a particular area and then moving the leg. So you're just kind of doing this little floss thing. It's almost like if you were getting that like deep kind of tissue massage or Swedish massage. So for our lovely TFL, now I might giggle during this because my hip flexors are mad tight. They're always tight, just from cycling and hiking and all that stuff. So you're gonna take your softball, or sometimes there's like Pilates balls that may be a little bit bigger, which is fine. But you're gonna come down onto the ground and you're gonna place this under that TFL. So with this, I want you to think like, if you're down here and you're like, oh, you're already like, nope, is to find ways to either come off of it a little bit more and just gently ease your way down. And then finding where that TFL is, and I'll put up some images for you so you know what I'm talking about. And one, you can just hang out here. I'm not doing anything, and I'm already getting a little sweat on because it feels so good. So there's that. And then you can do moving a little bit, little rotation, moving onto it, and then start to bend the knee, straighten the knee. Oh, that is so invigorating. You know it's good when you get the palm sweat. It's awesome. So you're just doing these little motions. And you would do it obviously to both sides. I'll show you how to do some things on the foam roller too. But I would recommend doing one side first, standing up and just kind of seeing how this feels. Like I already feel like this leg is a lot longer. It's a strange sensation, but awesome. So you would do both sides, either just kind of laying on it so your TFL is like right here, making sure you're not on like the hip bone. And you can also, so you're gonna have it about here, if you can see, and I'll put up, I'll put in a little graphic for you so you can see. And also coming a little bit into this hip crease right here. So coming back down, you're gonna lay on top of the ball or softball. Now I'm using my elbows to help support and keep the weight off. There's a giggle that's about to happen. So when you're here, again, you wanna have that core engagement so you're not just sinking into this. And then I'm gonna bring my heel back and straighten, heel back and straighten, little movements. And then I can move more to the outside, so more out here where that TFL is. And either hold it here or, again, incorporating that little knee movement. Now, if you don't have a ball, that's cool. You can also use a roller. So I'm more of a fan of the rollers that don't have all the spiky bits on them. And it's fairly firm, but it's not like rolling over a piece of wood. So it's got, again, a little bit of give. And one thing that's really nice, where you can hit both at the same time, is you're gonna lay upon the roller, get it down kind of in that hip crease. So you're just above kind of the pubis area. And you just can hang out here, really trying to let everything relax. If it feels okay, you can come down and relax your head. I'm still engaging my core, so I'm not dumping into the spine. So there is this little bit of core engagement, and oh boy, we're gonna get into core next week, just you wait. And then from here, I'm tucking my toes under, coming back on my elbows, and I'm gonna do a little tiny roll forward. So I'm going in between my hip bones and the top of the pubis there. So it's not a big movement. Another one you can do with a roller is you're gonna come up onto your side. Again, you're thinking about this part of your leg. So you're not on the hip bone, you're not on the outer hip, you're right just in front of this hip flexor. I'll give the other one. And then you're just gonna hang out here. So I'm using my arms to support me. You can bring a leg up to support you. Now I'm just hanging out here. The pressure, just having the pressure on it is doing things. Now, I can do a little tiny roll forward. This is where the giggling starts. And a little tiny, it's not a big movement, teeny tiny. Just like that. And then coming back over and just kind of checking in, sussing out to see how that feels. So now it feels all loosey-goosey. Like, I think that's the best way to describe it. It's just really open. So from here, like we talked about last week, this is a fabric band, a lot more challenging, but they also don't slide down your pants. But the regular plastic one is fine too. Find where that place is. How we talked about, like sometimes if you're upright, you may not feel the engagement with the glutes. Maybe you have to lean a little forward or a little back to find that. And then just using your glutes to help abduct versus these taking over, your TFLs taking over. So that's just a couple tips and tricks for releasing the TFL hip flexors. And obviously I'm going to go into more depth in further videos and whatnot. But let's talk about, say you've done a whole bunch of your glute activation and you've done a lower body workout and your tush is on fire. So a great thing to do obviously are some stretches, but also to foam roll. So let's take a peek. So if you have a roller, you're going to come down onto it. And initially, I'm kind of rotated a little bit at an angle, and I'm finding the fleshy part of my bottom. So I'm not right on that pointy part, that ischial tuberosity, or what in yoga they call the sits bones. So I'm above that. So I'm right in kind of that glute max in the fleshy bits. And I'm just doing a little roll, or you can just kind of hang out with it. Another option is you place one foot down, cross the foot over, again, adjust accordingly, and then you're going to do small roll, again, in that fleshy part. So you're not going over bone, and then you just hang out with it. Now, I know that the IT band foam rolling is super popular. I'm not going to get into that one today. We'll do that. We'll do that later. So you do that for both sides. Coming up. And then you feel all nice and open and long. And it's really helpful for recovery of just releasing that fascia so that it's not continually tensing up and tightening up, and kind of, again, thinking of like if you add heat to the saran wrap, how it does that. What we're doing by foam rolling and the fascia release is allowing that to kind of relax and open so that the muscles can move more easily within that space. So think saran wrap around the muscles, getting too tight, we roll them out, releases the fascia, the muscles and whatnot are able to move more easily. So that's your tips and tricks for this week. Releasing the TFL before you do your glute activation, after you do your leg workout or particularly your glute workout, rolling. That's just one of many ways to release your glutes. And what I'm talking about is like the fleshy, the meaty part of your glute. All right. Well, thanks for joining. If you want to see something or ask something in particular, put it in the comments below. I'll add, like I said, I'll add a couple graphics in so you know what bits and pieces I'm talking about. When you do the glute activation, release the tension in the hip flexors, you create that mind-body awareness and the strength and stability in order to come into a healthier version of a squat versus moving the legs in and out. Same thing with lunges, so you don't have that collapse. Anyway, I'm trying to keep this as real as possible, as unedited as possible. I want this to feel more like I'm talking directly to you. If you have questions, of course, let me know. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful week. I'm going to work on core stuff next week on forms and tip tips of how to make that more effective for you as well. So I hope you have a great week, wonderful weekend. Much love.